Hail, O legions of the new year. Hail, O mighty fiery angels of the goddess of opportunity. I have come to earth to ensoul a planet and a people with their divine destiny. I come with the magnet of the sacred fire, once again to try to implant the ardor, the fervor, the magnitude of light that will draw to each soul the awakening of the Buddha. The very process of the awakening of the Buddha, my beloved, is something which registers across a cosmos. My beloved souls of freedom, realize that in the infinite span of cosmos, the awakening process registers upon all sentient life. Those who know the meaning of the awakening also respond, for in the awakening is the infusion of the temple with the fullness of the Godhead. Those who know I am awake and watchful, those who know that Christos lives in cosmos, but have already denied their own opportunity to be among the enlightened ones, also listen with the ear to the sounds of the earth body, and they tremble for fear each time the awakening occurs. It is therefore in anticipation of the awakening ones that the arch deceivers have determined to destroy before that moment. It is actually a moment of extreme and excruciating pain for the deniers of reality to be aware of the light, the intense light that enters the matter sphere in this hour. Thus abortion and every other attempt to silence the senses, to silence the soul's sensitivities, to cut off the channels of awareness to higher octaves, to cut off the chakras as receiving centers of the magnitude of the stars, is attempted and plotted by these sub-divine manifestations that are even less than human itself. Beware then that the awakening process does not necessarily occur in the twinkling of an eye, but the process of awakening may come in an evolutionary manner as spiritually evolving child man takes in more and more of the spheres of light of the cosmos. You have noticed this in your own lifespan, and you can remember moments of great awareness and then an increase of the continuous consciousness of God with you. Some of you aspire to that continuity of divine consciousness and wonder when it will ever come, and others have an ongoing relationship with the angelic hosts that scarcely leaves off from that flame of God happiness. Therefore, you see, it is not merely an opposition to a moment, but it becomes the opposition to many lifetimes of the Bodhisattva becoming the Buddha, and the devotees of Mary becoming themselves wise virgins, vessels trimmed with the holy oil of spiritual gladness and the nectar of the crown chakra. I come to celebrate opportunity and all the Lady Masters of Heaven who are very near to earth and the children of the light as teachers and as comforters. This is the year of the woman in the sense of the reality of the Divine Mother appearing through many peoples of cosmos, beloved Venus and Meta, Kuan Yin, Nada, beloved Portia and the Goddess of Liberty, the beloved Queen of Light, the Goddess of Purity, the precious Goddess of Light. So the great brooding Mother, the great universal Spirit, appears likewise in many garments to teach her children. The ladies of heaven are following the rays of the sun to the very heart of the inner retreat, to the heart of your own threefold flame. And therefore wisdom will teach her children, and the mother flame will assist the mighty work of the ascended masters, as it has not occurred with such intensity or dispensation from beloved Omega herself in many a year. Therefore we anticipate exposés by our chelas, tuning into the mind of the Universal Virgin, who is concerned for her children and for the light of the aquamarine ray that descends from the heart of God as an invincible fount of cosmic purity, to quicken those inner soul receptivities, to heal any and all invasions of the 5 bands of the secret rays that now must surely be mastered by the most advanced chelas. For these are membranes and chambers in themselves that surround the heart and contain vessels of consciousness of Elohim for the resounding of the light of the heart, the sound of the heart, the movement of the heart. Understand that I unveil to you a function of the 5 secret rays as 5 concentric spheres, each one transmitting to the other a certain portion of the alpha to omega light of the nucleus. And therefore, the very creation itself hangs upon the immensity of a science unborn in the outer spheres, a vastness of the universe, a vibration, a resonance, and a quality that must remain somewhat undefined. I bring this to your attention so that you will realize that the experimentation of geneticists and the probings of life, the attempt to distort in all ways, has always been pursued with a vehemence of those who would take this heaven by force. For within the 5 secret rays are truly the secrets of creation. And when children of the light do not guard themselves, do not guard the physical heart or the subtle levels of the heart chakra, when they leave themselves wide open to probings by their own hardness of heart, their own prideful vulnerability, and a dense ignorance, born not only of human will, but also of Nephilim engineering, then you see, as with the fetal experiments that have occurred in recent years, the fallen ones take full advantage of the absence of protection of the heart, physically and spiritually, and they probe and continue to probe to wrest the secrets that they would know, somehow to endow their creation with a substance of personality in imitation of the creation of the soul. The soul is born in the nucleus of the central sun and gains identity initially in the 5 secret rays. And therefore you see, unless there be made calls for the protection of mighty cosmos secret rays in manifestation in earth, it will not be possible for the karmic board to release further light or a momentum of light that should be the very possession of all followers of God. Were we to release this light to embodied mankind prematurely before they had even a semblance of mastery of the seven rays, we would only be passing easily into the hands of the seed of the wicked more opportunity to discover more of the hidden mysteries of God. The mysteries of co-creation with the Almighty are actually that which belong to the sons of God. They belong to the Christed ones incarnate. But as with the secrets of nuclear science and invention, which have so easily passed into the hands of the enemy, this also would become something that would be the common property of those who in themselves have no life in them. Therefore, beloved, because of the circumstances of earth, the wide gaps and ranges between the evolutions, the sense that is missing, whereby individuals ought to protect and cherish the greatest gifts of God which they have been given, the karmic board is forced, therefore, to limit the release of light as well as the release of the teaching. You, my beloved, in your outer consciousness, also suffer the consequences of this planetary condition, in that we cannot put upon the ethers by our spoken word, even into your hearts, a secret knowledge of that which would be most helpful in your own protection, in the bringing forth of children, and in the building of the inner retreat. I come to you then with an alternative to the dilemma, and that is that you call upon your Christ self and your I Am presence to manifest the full powers of the secret rays within the sphere surrounding your heart, and that these 5 spheres be sealed in a cloak of invisibility, invincibility, and invulnerability, and be set by a mighty whirling blue sphere that cannot ever be touched by those who have less than the fullness of the presence of the Christ consciousness and its mastery. I ask that you call for the assistance of the 5 secret rays and their manifestation in your life for the purposes of your own ascension, your own enlightenment, and your own service, and that you grant unto the Elohim of the 5 secret rays entrance into your world, stating that you are not requesting to have the full knowledge and awareness of the complexities of the science and mathematics of the process, that you are content to remain the holy innocence and in the mode of child man, and to know only fully in the divine awareness at the etheric octave and the ascended master octave what will one day become the right of the sons of God in the golden age, when the judgment prophesied by Enoch shall have come to pass, and the descent of the holy city shall be made plain. I call this to your attention so that you may see that the Lady Masters of Heaven, who have the dispensation for a mighty release of light in this new year, work especially with the 5 secret rays, for these are involved in the formation of the child within the womb, and the visualization of the 5 bands of light within that womb and around the nucleus of the one that is being formed is most important for meditation of parents during the period of the gestation attending the birth of the newborn child. Your decree to mighty cosmos secret rays can afford much, especially when you know what you are calling for and when you have an expectancy of its manifestation and a dedication as a master alchemist, not as an apprentice, but as a master alchemist, to the guarding of the secrets vouchsafed to you in the secret chamber of the Most High God. Therefore I, SANAT KUMARA, have come to you this first day of the new year according to your keeping of the cycles of time, to inaugurate opportunity, life cycles, and an open door of fulfillment of all that must come to pass. I have looked forward to this moment when I could bring to you and allow you to feel the presence of my own Buddhic consciousness as the Guru to the evolutions of Earth and Venus and other planetary homes. I am the Ancient of Days, and my mission with the evolutions of Venus, which are your own life streams as well, and with Helios and Vesta, anchors through the Lord of the world, Gautama Buddha. With the presence of beloved Gautama, I am free to go to the great central sun and to carry therefrom great vials of light and cosmic purpose, which I may then bring for the reinforcement of your service and your sacred labor. We have said the time is short. It is indeed short against the backdrop of cosmic cycles. But then all anyone ever needs is enough. Enough time, enough of the substance of life, enough. One may contemplate the abundance of the universe, but when there is the austerity of moving straight toward the goal, more than enough becomes burdensome in the journey. Therefore, in the inner octaves of light, we have prepared the table in the wilderness. We have prepared the table that is the feast of light. And so the fruit of the tree of life is spread this day. Some of you have seen the scenes of the Last Supper with the Lord Christ presiding. Now visualize the same archetypal pattern of the Last Supper. There I am seated, and those whom are my apostles with me, who come as representatives of all of the chelas of the planets. And there upon the table, there is the fruit that is to be given not by the chela to the Guru, but by the Guru to the chela. It is the fruit of the tree of life, beloved hearts. The fruit of the tree of life whereby man may eat thereof and live forever. This is the initiation of Lord Maitreya. Once this fruit is partaken of, that one contains the seed of immortality, and none can turn it back. Therefore it is given to those who are called to this supper, and therefore it is given by way of anchoring in the physical octave, the flame of mortality in those souls of light who must henceforth walk the earth, having the living flame of immortality within them. It is my determination to apprise you of the fact that such an initiation does exist. And when, therefore, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is partaken of without the initiation of Maitreya in the garden, it results in a descent into relativity from which, therefore, the creation must be rescued. I am certain that you realize that it is a widespread belief on earth today that truth, with a capital T, cannot be known. And therefore, one must only deal in the relative and according to the circumstances of life to arrive at least some view of truth that will become practical for the human level. Beloved hearts, this belief that the absolute of perfection, of truth, of love, of will, of the mind of God, of healing, cannot be understood or contemplated or contained by embodied mankind, is the greatest lie that I know of, because from it proceeds the belief in the serpent consciousness that wisdom is of the relative plane, wisdom comes from learning, or wisdom comes from a false initiation of the false hierarchy, which gives the fruit of knowledge to those who have not yet received the initiation of Maitreya, whereby they are the Christed ones in embodiment and can therefore contain human knowledge and not be overcome by it and not be colored by it. There is a time and a place when one can see the things of this world and not be moved, because one contains the fullness of that Christ majesty, that Christ awareness in such blazing reality that not for a moment does one lose perspective by contemplating whether the wonders or the degradations of human science and human knowledge. Mankind then have prematurely eaten of this fruit, fed to them by the impostors of Lord Maitreya, the fallen angels of Jophiel's bands. Understand then that one must have regained the Christ consciousness to its fullness and be ready to eat of the fruit of the I Am presence, which does bestow eternal life, to receive the fruit which I give at this supper, this day, first day of the new year, according to your reckoning, 1983. Beloved hearts, it is well that you strive to receive this initiation, which I will give but once a year to those who are ready. Understand, therefore, that the temptations of serpent as Satan to Jesus must be seen for what they are, not merely writings in Scripture, but things which you come in contact with daily. The subtle sense of superiority of the solutions of life offered by mechanization man, these must be denounced and renounced. And the fervor within your heart and the fire that burns must be commensurate with that of the prophets and the adepts of old. You must take care against outer rigidity and outer fanaticism. Though the inner self be steely white, there must be a resilience and a certain flexibility and mobility in the outer sense of dealing with life and interacting with it. You may have the strongest sense of the Immaculate Heart, yet when speaking with others, they should scarcely know that you are even a devotee on the path. You see, one compromises the mastery of the 5 secret rays by making known to anyone the elements that comprise that path. This is why Jesus warned that one should fast in secret, should do one's praying in a closet, the closet of the secret rays, and therefore not reveal to those who are not on the path and those who are envious of that light the very process of the awakening itself. You then come in your higher self as one of the flames of the World Mother. You take on the person of Mother in your Christ consciousness, and you come into your temple from above to mother your own soul and to lead your soul in the way of prayer and fasting and whatever disciplines of the 5 secret rays you may perceive and have revealed to you by attunement with beloved Omega. The soul then responding begins to be as an electron whirling round and round and round about the 5 spheres of the 5 secret rays that surround the heart. The great mystery of the electron is that in the cloud of substance that is the force field of its manifestation, it is not entirely tracked by outer eye. It is in fact a law of life that by the needle of the mind of God, this electron, at carefully synchronized intervals, passes directly through the nucleus and comes out again into orbit, as though it were making a journey to the great central sun. Thus the electrons of the atoms may have a certain amount of recharging within the very force field of the matter universe. Prior to the grand ritual of the rotation, when the electrons and the atoms as well return to the great central sun for repolarization. Therefore, beloved, your soul may be conceived of as this identity that in accelerating its revolutions around the sun of the heart chakra may gain in self-awareness an internal awareness of what is the path of the secret rays. It is not necessary and indeed not wise to attempt to articulate this path, but rather to grow in the grace and be an emanating light center for that inner light. And the secret rays themselves, in answer to your call for that anonymity and that sealing action, will release the benefit of your God mastery without releasing the very secrets of the process itself. Thus, beloved, remember the first steps. Remember the path of the 7 rays and pursue these diligently as you would practice your scales on the piano daily if you were even a virtuoso and a concert pianist. There is a certain going over of the basic truths and the basic rituals that must be engaged in. These you teach to students and to those who are new in their acquaintance with the ascended masters. All the while you keep and guard in the chamber of the heart and in the tower of your own point of worship that ongoing self-awareness that comes from the within. It has been my desire to make plain to you this day that there are some solutions to the problems of life and some prophecies which we may not release in dictations nor in the printed word, but which must come directly to your heart. Saint Germain has promised you, who give the violet flame diligently, that you will hear his voice. And I tell you, I, SANAT KUMARA, am in direct relationship to your own life stream. There are things you must know that you must know only from within and that you must not speak of. For it is well known with the activities of international intrigue that this activity, as well as any other in the avant-garde of world change, is subject from time to the probes of those who are not dedicated to the light. We fear not. They have never in all eternity succeeded in scaling the heights of heaven or dethroning the Godhead, and they never will. Thus rest secure in your heart and realize that ultimately in your heart are the secrets of all of life and all that you require to mount the mountain of victory. For this reason, avatars in the past have not so much spoken, but they have acted. And those who then observe the actions of the messenger may also interpret or attempt to do so what is the reason behind the action. I ask you then to become perceptive and discriminating, observing in the direction which the messenger takes, in the course that she follows, in the goals for the activity. If you will simply make yourself one with her mantle, whithersoever the Lamb goeth, so go the 140,000. This is understandable. It is the dance of cosmos. The movement of the sun magnetizes the planets, and the galaxies continue to orbit the central sun, though the central sun itself be moving, as it were, across infinity. Thus there is a grand parade of beings of great light of cosmos, who have the internal awareness of God, and yet that awareness unexpressed becomes a oneness and a harmony whereby the body of God, almost silently as the silence of space, moves onward to the infinite goal. Realize then that our teaching may be expressed not so much in word, but in the action of the messenger and in the deeds of the chelas, the deeds of the noble knights and the ladies of the flame. We understand one another, we understand cosmic purpose, and we will not cast our pearls before the profane of the world. But those who understand that the pearl itself is the symbol of the causal body will realize that layer upon layer of the pearl is the revelation of the secret of life. Lady Venus joins me now with your beloved Linello in a very precious moment that is precious to our hearts. For whether known or unknown by the blessed instruments, there has come forth out of your midst a keeper of the flame who has had upon him the mantle of the cosmic artist and of Paul the Venetian, and the fervor of devotion within his heart, the God determination to execute our will of a life-size portrait of your beloved messenger. This portrait, unbeknownst to the messenger, was never appointed or commissioned simply for the purpose of the glory of the outer, but it has been our desire and design to establish this life-size focus of her in her office as my representative of the flying eagle and the guru on the 6 o'clock line, here in Southern California, here at Camelot, until all should be fulfilled. I therefore invite the most blessed Ray Brown and Ruth Brown to bring now to the altar the work of their hearts and hands. I ask for the unveiling of the portrait. In the name of Almighty God, I, SANAT KUMARA, now ensoul this painting with my own force field and presence, and with the causal body of the twin flames of the messenger. It embodies the office of Guru and of the Mother as Savioress to the light bearers of earth. It embodies the flame of the mighty sword of the judgment and the full power of the Brotherhood of Sirius anchored through the mighty eagle. Now there coalesces within this painting that light that shall be the focus for the holding of the balance here until all be fulfilled. This painting is to be hung at the 6 o'clock line of the sanctuary, opposite the chart of the presence, above the door of exit. And therefore you will see that opposite the chart, the woman therefore holds the balance of the I am presence in matter. All of you then who look upon this may take this image to your heart and to your soul and receive it as an image of yourself, yourself as mother, yourself as part of the one body of God, yourself as you are one with mother in the Guru-Chela relationship and therefore one with me. It is a painting of the messenger. It is also a painting of myself, but I appear as the sun behind the sun. I appear in the person of the eagle, in the person of the great causal body, and in the focuses of light that you see. Directly through the heart chakra pours the light of Venus. Let this then be a focus of the meditation of an office and of one who has worn it well. Let it therefore not be attention upon an outer personality, for it is not a portrait of an outer person, but of the inner Christ of your own beloved. This magnificent work, executed and fulfilled against all of the temptations and the opposition of the powers of darkness, executed by Ray, for whom Ruth held the balance and the love and the vision, is that which you may understand as an initiation taken upon themselves by Chelas, who received this directly from my heart, for the messenger never requested or had any requirement of having for herself a portrait. And therefore, with great surprise and wonder and ongoing expectation, this work has been accomplished. And yet, it was hidden so much so in the secret rays of the hearts of these devotees that even Mother herself did not have her attention upon it for many long months. In the name I am that I am, it is sealed in the light of my heart, and it is the physical focus, therefore, for your own entering into the path of the secret rays and into the heart of the inner retreat. Keepers of the flame worldwide, Chelas of my heart, I commend you to the keeping of the Universal Virgin, who is the sun behind the sun of every manifestation of life, including the Mother. May you rejoice and be glad, for in this image you see a forerunner of the intense action of the physical stepping through the veil, not only of the ascended masters, but of your own Christ self. For truly, the physical painting itself is a promise that your own Christ self, just above you, stands also waiting to step through the veil, And you, the artist, must be so dedicated, similarly in this fashion, to bring forth the perfect painting of that Christ in flesh, and of the authority of that Christ, and of the scepter, of the sword, of the book of the law. And to you, beloved hearts, beloved Ray and Ruth, I, Sanat Kumara, promise you my love and protection all the days of your life, until you also fulfill the promise which you have brought forth and which is the key to your own ascension. May you also respond to the movement of the messenger. Beloved hearts of living fire, I, Sanat Kumara, seal you with the hand that has held the fruit of the tree of life and bears yet its vibration. Therefore the sealing with the hand that is the bearer of the fruit is the beginning of the process of your own preparation to partake thereof and live forever. May this be your goal. May this be your joy. In the name of the cosmic host, in the name of our Father, our Son, our Holy Spirit, and our Mother, Om Buddha. Happy New Year, Sanat Kumara.
Happy New Year, Sanat Kumara.
Isn't it wonderful to be on earth in the hour of his victory?
Yes.
Happy New Year again, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Well, well, about the biggest mistake I made, I worked directly on the painting. I didn't make a sketch of it first, you know. And, well, it goes before that. It began with I wanted to do a portrait of Sanat Kumara. So I collected a bunch of pictures and I studied them for a while, you know, and tried to come up with something and I never could. So then I did the, I was going to do a chart, maybe perhaps something a little different. And Ruth came up with the idea, why not do a portrait of you? So, of course, I did. And well, that was 3 years ago. And then in my spare time, I, well, finally come to the point, as I call it, finished. But
How long did you work on it?
3 years. I started on Thanksgiving 3 years ago and finished this Thanksgiving. So, yeah, my problem was, too, I didn't have much to work from, except the pictures from the brochures, you know, that we get from the University Press. And so I didn't even know your exact color of your eyes, and, you know, except for the photograph name was very clear. But I'm just glad that I was given the opportunity to do it, and I actually feel honored that I was given that opportunity. And I thank you, Mother, and the Masters, and of course, my wife, Ruth, here for supporting me and inspiring me and making sure that I do it right. So many times I said, well, okay, this is all I'm going to do to it. You know, I do one particular thing. She comes in, no, that's all wrong. You can't go like that. So I'd have to The good thing about it's oil, you know, in canvas, linen canvas, so I could just keep working over and over forever, you know, just keep changing. So, and some places there are quite a few layers of paint. Changes to make. The eagle? Oh, well, I had a couple other eagles up there. I didn't like them, and so. One night, I know I looked all over for you, and I couldn't find the exact one I wanted. So one night, I'm in a habit of getting in the middle of the night and go down and have a snack. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, I went down to the kitchen and had a little snack, and then I wasn't even thinking about the painting anything, and I had the impression to go to look in the library and pull out a National Geographic, and I did, and I flipped the pages over, in the center page, this eagle was there. Except for, well, it wasn't exactly like this. This wing here was furrowed back, and it was kind of foreshortening, but I changed that.
Was that after the figure was done?
Beg pardon?
Was that after the figure was done?
Well, the figure was on there. Well, I did it, might say, all together, you know. The idea was, well, SANAT KUMARA come with the Book of the Law and the Ruby Sword of Victory. That was my thinking in doing it, you know. So, of course, I needed the eagle. And the sword itself is, I designed that. I couldn't find a proper sword, so I had to come up with something myself, so.
Makes me feel like I'm floating on a cloud. Or else the Earth has been translated into the violet planet. Well, it is something that I never even imagined would ever happen in my lifetime. I never even considered it something important, you know. And all of a sudden, they arrived before Christmas, before the class, with the painting finished, and it's almost like on the outer I didn't go through the process of 3 years, and all of a sudden it's physically present.
I would like to say one other thing too concerning this. I want to thank Richard and Amanda Plona for bringing it here from Houston, and so we had quite a time coming through the snowstorm in the mountains there, skidding down the mountains with it, because we had 2 Suburbans. We had one hooked to the other, and the painting was in the back one. And of course, they're quite heavy with a crate and everything, and it was just pushing us all over down the hills there. So I want to thank them and thank Archangel Michael for the protection, getting it here.
Well, I want you to all remember that you are the sword in the right hand of the Mother, and we carry the Book of the Law together. And those jewels are for the 5 secret rays. And as you know, it's the one thing of the secret rays that I have worn, despite all of the condemnation of seems like the whole wide planet. And there he has reproduced those focuses exactly. And in those hands, you can see that that is where I am holding the balance, as well as in the heart of your own path of the secret rays. So we thank you. We invite all of you to our New Year's Day dinner now. And God bless you all. The four Manus of the root races, my beloved, serve Earth's evolutions in holding the balance of the law with the four cosmic forces. These four hold the cardinal points, north, south, east, and west, the cardinal points of divinity with which all must find congruency. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Mother. We four therefore embody the elements of nature, of angelic host, of the Chohans of the rays, angels, elementals, and evolutions of the four root races that remain to fulfill their fiery destiny upon earth. The fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh root races. I am your own blue lotus flame, Himalaya. With me stand Vevaspata Manu, the god and goddess Meru, and the great divine director. We come therefore bearing the light of the Christ flame of these holy ones of God. It appears that the longevity of the stay upon earth has increased the karmic accountability of those earlier members of the earlier root races that remain, those of the fourth and the fifth, that ought to be the great-granddaddies and grandmothers of those incoming avatars of the sixth and the seventh root races. Beloved ones, as you know, the tilt of Earth's axis due to laggard karma has caused an out-of-kiltering effect in the manifestation of the timetables of the sixth and the seventh root races. Some have said that the seventh root race is nigh in coming, and others have said that the sixth root race is only appearing now. Realize that the avatar, Jesus Christ, came as the pivot point between the fourth and fifth and their entrenched manifestation of Brahmanism and of the recalcitrance of the Sanhedrin and the rabbinical schools. And those have existed as an inverted and reverted orthodoxy, both in the traditions of East and West. He came also to set the Christ example for the sixth root race and to open the door to the example for the seventh in the very person of Saint Germain, in numerous embodiments, that which represents the apex, or was intended so, in the life of Francis Bacon. Even that embodiment was almost a short-changing for Saint Germain, for his divine rule upon earth ought to have been as king of the English-speaking peoples of the planet. Nevertheless, the teachings were set forth, and Francis Bacon left a mark that none can wipe out. It is a stain of truth that will not be removed from the garment of any of the four root races of Earth's evolutions. Thus the days are hastening, and we observe that some great forerunners of the seventh race have taken embodiment, and those are more numerous in the sixth root race. Of these have come forth to occupy planet Earth in far greater numbers than many realize. This has to do with the shortening and the lengthening of cycles, as it must be so, because of the interference with cosmic cycles that has happened not only in the last 200 years, but the last 2,000 years. Now, beloved hearts, for many of you, this planetary body is not home. Your home may be Venus, or the god star Sirius, or beyond. And therefore you understand yourselves as pilgrims here and servants of SANAT KUMARA, And many of you are most interested in fulfilling your individual divine plan, as many of the ascended masters today were interested in so doing when they were in embodiment. They have discovered, as you soon shall, that merely to fulfill one's own divine plan does not necessarily cut one free from this evolution or this planetary body, even if one is not a member of the embodied 4th, 5th, or 6th root races. Therefore, you see, it is important to plan not only ahead in a straight line, but wide, as though making the lines of a piece of a great cosmic pie, fanning out from your own part flame, and including a much larger circle of the horizon, and those many life waves that shall come over the horizon in search of the dawning light of your personal divinity. What I am saying is this, that we who are the Manus who have embodied the archetypal patterns of these races, as well as the law and the fiery destiny, have also tarried with this earth star, perhaps far beyond our own personal karma may have required. But the larger dharma of our service would not let us free until all evolutions coming forth with the God stamp of our divinity should also find their freedom. This represents, therefore, to you who would don the mantle of the shepherds of the race, a continuing challenge, for the challenge now is the intermingling of races and laggard races with the root races, even with the 6th root race, and also the seed of the wicked and the fallen ones. And therefore, for the rescue of the light bearer, all must attend the harvest. Now we have isolated a very particular and peculiar problem for each of the many sectors of the root races. For there are many life waves and generations that in and of themselves within the root races, as you know, form sub-root races and karmic groups. We have realized, therefore, that many of you, unbeknownst to yourselves, and without realizing the reason for your specialization, find yourselves in a work, a sacred labor, a profession, or engaged in a study, or an emphasis in your life service that involves a very important segment of one of the root races, those presently here, and ultimately of the fulfillment of the 6th and the 7th life waves. Therefore, beloved, we would have you understand that without your realization of the fact, you actually hold in your hand and in your heart this day the key to the overcoming and the victory and the divine plan of large groups of Earth's evolutions, some of whom do not even reside upon this continent. Although America being what she is, the great melting pot of all evolutions, you can always find at least representatives of those life waves. Understanding this, and also understanding that there is a point of illumination and a teaching of the law on the path to self-mastery that is often particularly understandable to certain groups of individuals. Some will understand the mystery of the spoken word, others the violet flame, others the interpretation of biblical prophecy or the words and works of Christ or Krishna or Buddha. Finding the particular thread to thread the eye of the particular needle of the bent of consciousness, therefore becomes your assignment from the Manus of the root races and the members of the karmic board in this year 1983. You have heard the goddess of liberty and beloved Portia speak to translate the heart, head, and hand decrees into the languages of the ethnic groups that are found in the United States, and to bring into the light and into the teaching of the violet flame those individuals who have come this far by the call of the heart, by the call of love, and who have settled here and therefore who have already imbibed the elements of the flame of liberty, as well as the spirit of America. Those who are free yet to oppose the activities of communism in their home nations, and those who have at least some protection of this nation, which they ought to have in the defense of the liberty of their karmic group. This remains an assignment, and I ask that it be accelerated and acted upon physically, coordinated with your other publishing goals of this year. It is important that needle rays, I said needle rays, from the heart of mighty cosmos penetrate as crystal splinters of sacred fire into the hearts and souls of people that have never been reached before. It is important that you listen, and listen well, to Mother's teaching on the 2x2, which equals the city 4 square. This is an important assignment as your initiation, not only from Jesus Christ and Lord Maitreya, but all of the Buddhas of the earth. They have sent their disciples 2x2 across the nations, and you must understand that it is not necessary to travel 1,000,000 miles, but to pick a neighborhood in your city and to go door to door and to give the teachings of the masters and the concepts of the new age, bearing the magnificent focus of heart and presenting it as your statement of truth and as the open door to the understanding of brotherhood among nations. Blessed ones of the light, this is an assignment that is necessary on the path of every bodhisattva. It requires both humility and boldness. It requires the willingness to make oneself, as the prophets of old, a gazing stock, and perhaps to allow oneself to be looked down upon by those self-styled superior elements of society who consider such activities the actions only of the poor and the uneducated. I speak then of going door to door with a message of the heart, and the realization that in some areas of life, pride and the pride of fallen ones does not allow for this conduct, nor for the inclusion of people who so carry on their life within the higher echelons of society. You have come to a conference on the Buddhas in winter, and perhaps you wonder how this very theme relates to all that has taken place here. I assure you that the Buddhas in winter are the Buddhas within the 5 secret rays surrounding your own heart, and that this conference is convoked because it was necessary for you to be assembled, to be still, and to be one-pointed in your attention, so that a mighty work could be carried on within the temple of your own being and within the temple of your heart chakra for the fortification of your hearts against the battle and unto the victory. Therefore I, Himalaya, address you on the very activities of the fallen ones and their determination to eat away at the 4 lower bodies of the individual. Christ the Lord gave the teaching, fear not them which kill the body, but those which destroy the soul in hell. There are those upon earth in this hour, Mr. Andropov, for one, that manifests the ultimate of Antichrist and has used means for the destruction of the soul in hell for all the years of his activities with the KGB in the Soviet Union and throughout the world. Realize then that the destruction of the soul in hell is the destruction of the sheaths of light, the vehicles of consciousness, the means of self-expression, self-awareness, Christhood and Buddhahood that are accorded to the soul. You realize that all that is beneath the octave of your mighty I Am presence and outside of the mighty rings of your Christ self is vulnerable. All is temporal, all is mutable, which means subject to change. All is temporal, which means subject to the decay of time. Realize then that the physical body is subject to the law of disintegration, as is the astral body. The mental body has its strength only when it is the embodiment of the Christ mind, and therefore does endure beyond the cycles of disillusion when the Christ mind is the reality of the mind of the individual. The carnal mind itself and the sheath of the mental body, when it is used as an instrument for the carnal mind, is also subject to disintegration, and the fire body, the least mutable, may yet come under a certain assault by the most sophisticated means of the sinister force, especially the lower etheric body, where there are the records of discord, disease, and death. Now, if you can imagine these lower bodies, all but the highest levels of etheric perfection, subject to the corrosion of the sinister force and a deliberate plot whereby the force literally eats away at these bodies, you can see that what would remain is the soul itself naked. Now, this nakedness is the station of the cross, wherein Jesus Christ is stripped of his garments. The stripping of the garments is the stripping of the vessels. The question is, to be or not to be, whether or not stripped of your vessels, you would remain an identity, an id-entity, a manifestation of individualization of the God flame. Stripped of your four lower bodies in this moment, beloved, what would remain of your selfhood and of your consciousness? All that would remain is the pure white fire of your chakras, your threefold flame, and that which your own beloved Linello often referred to as the substance of soul. Soul substance, or soul stuff. And this substance of soul is like a cloud of fiery energy that surrounds the seat of the soul chakra. And therefore it is like Tinker Bell, appearing as a light that goes on and off, almost like a firefly. The identity of the soul is like a white Christmas ball with a fire in the center, and it glows by the quality of consciousness that has been retained by the individual below the level of the heart, below the level of the Christ. That is sustaining God's awareness within the soul. The soul is often seen as the personality of the individual and the manifestation of the outer self. It is that portion of the life stream that continues to evolve. It is the potential for beingness, itself also subject to non-permanence by the wrong exercise of free will. Therefore, beloved ones, we must consider, on the one hand, the needs of the root races remaining on earth, and as your role as shepherds. And we must consider, on the other hand, the attempts of the false hierarchy to erode and corrode the sheaths or garments of the members of these root races precisely according to what is most important from the standpoint of the sinister force to destroy in terms of those root races' divine plan. The fallen ones have computers in their astral retreats and lairs where they have noted carefully the life waves of earth, where they have set their mark and their targets. Why, beloved ones, if Mr. Andropov could actually have amassed Western technology to create a tremendous computer system on the Soviet Union which keeps track of millions of people both within the Iron Curtain and in the West, do you not think that the masterminds behind him and the false hierarchy of the astral plane, who have been doing this for tens of thousands of years, should not have a far more accurate recording of the life streams? Every life stream upon this planet to them is a potential God and a potential Christ, whom they see as a threat to their own continuing non-existence, their own continuing unreality. And therefore, as easily as you can bring to the fore on a giant computer system on its screen the outline and profile of statistics on an individual, so it can be done in the astral plane, and it is done. And therefore, when you put together the entire record of a life stream of previous incarnations, as is done by the fallen ones, it is easy to perceive at a glance what is the weakness, what is the vulnerability, what is the point of the Achilles heel. And therefore the fallen ones drive and drive and drive against that vulnerability of each and every living soul. Therefore they have devised ways and means to work against the children of the light. They have their psychiatric hospitals, they have their injections, they have their manipulations of the brain. This is where individuals may be captured by them. In the West, they have a constant putting across of the nations of psychotronic energy, which is intertwined with and amplified by rock music. They have a mass campaign of using drugs of every kind, these to destroy chemically the strength of light that surrounds the chakras, to begin to corrode the astral body, the physical body, to begin to destroy the cell patterns, and to alter the DNA. Nation by nation across the face of the earth, they have used various techniques. Genetic engineering has all but overburdened and destroyed the light of the people of the African continent. Beloved hearts, if you look at each nation and even the segments of nations, you can see those things that have been used by the fallen ones to destroy the capacity of the mind to transcend itself, to go beyond the brain, to go into those electronic currents that vibrate around the brain and the chakras, that connect the soul, the living soul by the heart flame, to the mind of God, to the Christ self, and to the I am presence. Beloved hearts, you must understand the reality of this problem. Even some of those substances, heavy spices, and habituary uses that are made in India of other types of substances such as betel have brought about a density, or perhaps an indulgence, a weakness that involves the absence of the balance of the yin and the yang in the chemistry of the body. And therefore people who become weakened in the spine because the kundalini is siphoned off by various means, find themselves weakened in the mind, in the body, in the emotions, and they are not able to summon the strength that is adequate and powerful enough in the light of the internal Krishna to manifest the antithesis to that which is sent against them as the great overwhelming darkness. It is a darkness that is a counterfeit of that dark night of the soul and the dark night of the spirit, which comes under the protection of the Manus to those souls who must enter in to the fullness of their Christhood. Therefore, the fallen ones anticipate the initiation of the transfer of the fruit of knowledge as well as the fruit of the tree of life. They anticipate all of the initiations that must come to pass on the path of the Christ and the Buddha. They counterfeit these, they preempt them, they come too early before the individual is ready, and therefore the individual himself in the very process surrenders his light and becomes the slave of one more planetary beast of mass control. This having been accomplished, the individual is securely blinded to his own fiery destiny and insensitized to even the sensitivity that he should have to the coming of the elect one, to the guru or the teacher who could rescue him from his plight. Thus you have noticed how those who are on drugs do not wish to hear that drugs are not good for them and resent the approach of anyone who would help them. As you know very much, this is the marijuana entity or the heroin entity, and therefore once beset by the entity, the individual has sealed himself from illumination and enters a downward spiral unless some Son of God lays down his life and takes unto himself that conglomerate of the marijuana beast or the planetary beast of heroin or cocaine or PCP or all of these deadly substances which were also known on Atlantis. Therefore, beloved ones, the 4 Manus come with a dispensation multiplied by the 9 Buddhas from beloved Alpha and Omega, that you individually, by the power of your own Buddhic mind and Buddhic heart, shall be given the instruction at the Grand Teton Retreat at night, if you so choose to receive it and make the fervent call, that you will understand what is the specialization of your own heart and your own ability to teach a certain aspect of the teaching, which is the wisdom of the law, and of the misuse of the light on earth by way of exposures, of the manipulation of the people. Your specialization as above, so below will allow you to converse in many circles where interests may be more avid regarding material circumstances and betrayals, such as in the government or the economy, than it would be in things of the spirit. And therefore you must always have in your miracle pouch any number of jewels to choose from that you may use. Now at the Grand Teton Retreat, under a coordinated program of Lord Lanto and Lord Confucius, you will then learn what is your present specialization, what has been your field of concentration in many previous embodiments that would be ideal for you to bring forth and multiply again and make use of it, because it is treasure in your cosmic bank account. And then you will be given the ability to develop this and perfect it both on the inner and the outer. You will be shown which life waves and groups of individuals on earth will find and have the greatest appeal for your specialization. You will be shown what is the divine plan of these people, who are they, where are they, what is their economic and educational level, how should you approach them, in what level of language and communication, and you will also be shown what is their divine plan and what is the opposition to their divine plan by the mass organization such as the KGB and other nefarious forces that are alive and active in the astral planes of every nation upon earth. Realize then that you must put on the whole armor of God, and realize how serious is this assignment and how dangerous it is in itself. You must have a co-measurement of yourself against the backdrop of the infinite and your mighty I Am presence, and you must also have a co-measurement of the enemy. You must realize what are his tools, what he will do, calculated precisely as a reaction to your own statement of truth. When you know the enemy, you study past performance of that enemy and how he has responded to the threat, the ultimate threat against his own personhood. And therefore you are ready for the return, you are ready for the 11 o'clock return of revenge against the thrust of power of wisdom sponsored by the evolutions of the Gemini mind of God from the heart of Darjeeling and your own beloved El Moria. I can assure you that the Manus and the members of the Darjeeling Council and of the Great White Brotherhood have met in this past year and before the turning of this decade, and have prepared for you, as you are able to receive it, more and more specific assignments and more specific dispensations. You must be ready for the incision of the diamond shining mind of God and the razor's edge of penetration to rescue souls actually by the use of the cosmic razor, cutting them free from the grips of the fallen ones without harming not a hair of their heads or even of their skin. Beloved ones, realize then that the plot to eat away at the 4 lower bodies and leave the soul naked before the soul itself has the attainment in Christhood is a most deadly and serious situation. For if the soul be stripped of her garments before the hour when the soul is walking the 14 stations of the cross, preparing for the crucifixion. That soul will be naked in the sense of ultimate vulnerability to the hordes of shadow, who then simply come in and make, as it were, mincemeat of that one. This is what happens to individuals when they pass from embodiment, whether by suicide, our youth in suicide, or in overdoses of drugs, or in drunk driving, or all of the mishaps that occur, to pluck from life the tender buds of the vine. These things ought not to be. An example of this activity against the four lower bodies and the soul is in the problem of child molesting. This in itself is such an inroad that it does penetrate the psyche, which is the soul, and it is an attempt to penetrate the 5 secret rays, for the 5 secret rays around the heart are the guarding of the virgin consciousness of the Holy Child, so that that virgin consciousness is sealed in heart, and the actual life force is not activated in the Kundalini until the child reaches an older age, when it is correct according to the divine plan of evolution for that child to mount in the light of understanding of the procreative process and the mantle of father and mother. The stimulation and the activation of the lower chakras in little children by the mass media, by drugs and alcohol, and by all forms of looseness on the part of parents is therefore the means of the lowering of the sacred fire of the 5 secret rays that surround the heart into the lower chakras. And this stimulation, as with all stimulation of the chakras, may result in addiction, and addiction which follows demands a day-by-day increasing stimulation in order for there to be achieved a certain release. Whether it is alcoholism, whether it is drugs, whether it is sexual activity, the more that the aggravation occurs, the more it is engaged in. And thus, it is the plot of the false hierarchy of this planet in this year to take their onslaught against the youth and the little children and the newborn and the unborn. It has been so in previous years, but I tell you, they have met in their councils, these false hierarchs. They have moved against the light bearers, and they have determined that the greatest enemies of mankind are in embodiment or coming into embodiment and are now in existence up to the age of 21. Thus we must also make it our mark and our goal to place in the hands of those who are teenagers and below our magazine for the coming revolution in higher consciousness, for they are the ones who will be able to run with the message. You can see then that the attack upon the reading ability, the intelligence, the comprehension, the vocabulary, and the English language worldwide upon the people of these ages is precisely to prevent them from having an inherent attunement with the word which has gone forth and the manifestation of the word in language. Beloved hearts, that which has the greatest power to succeed is that which is the community of the Holy Spirit that is organized. There can be no organization without communication. There is no communication without the Holy Spirit. I suggest that you consider earnestly once again the forming of committees of concentration. You have heard Chelas speak on their areas of expertise or areas where they are in the process of becoming experts. You may identify with one or more of these or none, having your sense of direction elsewhere. What you must realize is that all over the world there are keepers of the flame who over the years have formed a God determination to support the brotherhood in one or more areas of concentration in their decrees decreeing itself on the activities of world communism already creates a specialization, for you are specialists in wielding the mighty sword of blue flame and the sword Excalibur, and you have a mighty momentum on dealing with this, because when you exit your bodies and go to the etheric retreats, you carry your decree momentum with you, and therefore you become adept also in the awareness of what is happening. I will tell you therefore that upon this planetary body, the representative par excellence, if you would have it, of the Antichrist is Andropov. You must understand that this individual coming to the head of the Soviet Union is the greatest single threat worldwide to the light bearers that has occurred since the era of Stalin. This individual being worse than Stalin himself, and the cunningness of the individual and the seeming acceptance of members of the West, their desire to believe he is better than they know he is a dangerous sign, because it shows that the leaders of the West do not really want to face what is clearly the handwriting on the wall. Therefore I, Himalaya, from the very heights of the purity of the snows of the mountains of the earth, send forth to you in the name of Vevasvata Manu and the god and goddess Meru and the great divine director the assignment to daily make the call for the judgment of this individual and all who are working with him, all who are on his wavelength, through every member of the KGB in every nation upon earth, through the spaceships, through their computers of the false hierarchy on the astral plane and on the physical plane that are now functioning in the Soviet Union and elsewhere, and in the embassies of all of the satellite nations and their psychotronic generators. The judgment upon this individual and all that comes forth through him, the entire network of world control, must be your God determination. And in terms of the political arena upon the face of this planet, there is nothing as important. This individual will stop at nothing. You know of record that there have been brutal and barbaric assassinations in this nation of America, of representatives in the press of European nations in the Soviet bloc who have come to America to expose the activities of the Communist Party worldwide. The KGB has entered their apartments, their offices, murdered them, and our own government, the government of that is representative of the Great White Brotherhood, or ought to be, has done nothing to stop these agents, to catch these murderers, or to request the closing of the embassies, or to send home the representatives of these nations. This means that, technically speaking, every American citizen who raises his hand against the darkness of these foes is subject to the same assault. This is the bare truth, but it is so. Therefore, protect yourselves, protect your children, and understand that what has happened in the past in terms of Soviet murder and brutality can happen again unless checked by the light bearers. This checking action that comes through the dynamic decrees ultimately is traced to its source by psychics in the Soviet Union who see clearly what is the opposition to the Soviet Empire and have as their trade and their business to do nothing but use their enhanced psychic powers to follow the rays and wavelengths of the minds of the light bearers on earth. Therefore, it is not a difficult matter for them to trace the wavelength of the dynamic decrees that oppose world communism. I bring to you, therefore, another perspective on the why and wherefore of the inner retreat and Glastonbury. It is because strength is in numbers. When the numbers of individuals who have been of the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and other groups upon earth have reached a certain level, by the fact of their sheer numbers and their consequent power, they have been more or less left alone. However, it has always been the isolated Son of God that has been attacked and has been done away with. When you have that mutual support and mutual strength, you will see how much more you can do for planet Earth. I, for one, and the Manus join me in encouraging you to enter into that union, that divine union upon which this nation was founded, which is the union of the Great White Brotherhood. To come into that union and to discover how the mountains, the forests, and the bigness of the land itself can act as a radiating center to multiply your joint decrees in far greater capacity than is possible in the dense cities, where you must first overcome a very dense covering over, especially at sea level, of the mass consciousness of millions of individuals abiding there before you can actually reach a crescendo of planetary influence. You can see how we have chosen a rugged area, for the masters have always summoned their devotees to the rugged areas of the Himalayas. As the Himalayas are no longer in an area of physical protection, we summon all devotees of the masters of East and West to the inner retreat. For those who have been decimated in their ranks in Tibet and in India must realize that there is a haven of safety and a place of reinforcement. The power and the science of the spoken word must now meet the challenge of interplanetary, physical, and astral forces as it has never done before. And we would see the geometry of the multiplication of our forces meet every challenge upon earth, that we might walk into the golden age, hand in hand and secure. We look then for the fulfillment of the divine plan. We look for the laying of the foundation of the seventh age and the seventh dispensation, when truly freedom can be permanent, because it is first the attainment of God mastery in the hearts of the people. I trust my message this day will quicken in your heart not only a vision, but the perception of your own ability to do more and to be more precise in your statements for the victory. May the messenger and staff be so blessed as to provide you with the publications and the information that you may use as tools as you are on the battle line, and you must have the necessary weapons, so they must manufacture them. For our weapon is truth, it is love, it is the mystery of the word, it is the expose, it is illumination. And therefore, as you send back from the front lines messages on the condition of the world, as you write your summaries and your articles and send them to the heart, these may quickly be translated, whether into our magazine, at least into pamphlets of information on the various topics. There is nothing to prevent you from forming committees to write newsletters on the specific area of concentration of your choice. Newsletters that speak of what is happening nation by nation to combat marijuana, abortion, and all of the foes of the light bearers. I come in the name of the cosmic Christ and the Buddhas aborting in the womb. I come as the representative and the incarnation of the Buddhas in winter. I come for the protection of the 5 secret rays and the pathway of the 5 Buddhas. May you come to understand these great truths, and may much of the teaching on the Buddhas already given in past quarters of Summit University become available to you this quarter, as students here rejoice to discover just how much has been taught. And so you may also rejoice in your field of labor to come home for that cup of cold water and the elixir of light, which is the hearing of the word of beloved Linello and Mother, so prepared for you with such great love by so many saints above. I am Himalaya. Remember me in the blue lotus and in every blue flower you see throughout the year. For I am truly the blossoming of the blue flame will of God to draw all life waves into alignment with the inner blueprint. May you so aspire, and may you know what it means to live absolutely and fully fulfilled, one with and perfectly aligned with your own great divine reality with your own inner purpose, your soul blueprint. Blessed ones, I tell you, the feeling of being absolutely Christ-centered in mind and body and soul is the greatest exhilaration that you can know in physical embodiment. May you know it, may you love it, and may you give it to all as you break the bread of life of your own soul substance, and give to all that which is yours to give, and seal the circle of identity. Allow no man to take thy crown, allow no woman to penetrate thy garment, allow no devil or fallen elemental or mischievous foul spirit to enter into the bloodstream and alter the pure divinity of your God consciousness. I am Himalaya of the sun. I have tarried with earth's evolutions long, and I wait for my own beloved to ascend from your midst. Therefore understand how cosmic beings have yet in embodiment their own twin flames, and strive with oneness for your own. For we have known the pain of the battle and the pain of separation. With you we strive onward to attain the mark of godhood. In the name of the entire spirit of the Great White Brotherhood, I salute you in victory. In the name of beloved Lord Himalaya Vaivasvata Manu, the God and Goddess Meru and the great divine director, by the heart of Helios and Vesta, we salute all of our brothers and sisters in white, ascended hosts and saints of the Great White Brotherhood, and all who are a part of a mighty cosmic effort to rescue the souls of light upon earth and to roll back every threatening woe that can be rolled back by the will of God. We thank you, beloved beings of light, our teachers and friends who have so organized yourselves to make possible our own service, which we sense in such an accelerating manner. In the name of light we say, Hail Himalaya! Hail Himalaya! Hail Himalaya! Hail Himalaya!
I am Marvin Kalb, reporting from Rome. 4 months ago, NBC News broadcast a one-hour report called The Man Who Shot the Pope. It disclosed for the first time a great deal of information linking the attempted assassination of John Paul II to Soviet anxieties about Poland, with Bulgaria playing a key role in the plot. The story became a diplomatic sensation and a problem, clouding East-West relations during an arms race and a transition of power in the Kremlin. Bulgaria and the Soviet Union strongly denied any involvement, even as more evidence of their complicity has emerged in Italy, Turkey, and West Germany. It is our intention tonight to update the story of this shocking crime, starting here, where it occurred. It happened on May 13th, 1981, on a warm Wednesday afternoon. An unsuspecting Rome sparkled in the sunlight, each of its fountains a silent witness to other intrigues. The dome of St. Peter's dominated the skyline of the Eternal City. It was exactly 5:17 p.m. The Pope, riding in his white Jeep through the crowded square, had just opened his general audience, blessing a young girl and waving to the faithful. Then, suddenly, a hand, a gun, and a volley of fire. The gunman turned out to be a 23-year-old Turk, Mehmet Ali Aca, a professional killer wanted for murder in Turkey. He seemed, under the circumstances, remarkably cocky.
I am very sorry to tourist women.
He expressed regret about having wounded the tourists, but not about having shot the Pope.
Why did you do it?
At the time, many people rushed to glib judgments about Aca, but only a handful of Italian officials had an inkling of a Bulgarian connection, and they quickly covered up the evidence. The court concluded that Aca was part of a conspiracy, but few chose to pursue the obvious lead. For more than a year, a strange curtain of silence fell over the crime. The silence ended last fall, in part because NBC's report encouraged others to follow the story. Then a confirming bombshell. On November 25th, Italian police arrested a Bulgarian, Sergei Ivanov Antonov, described as head of the Bulgarian airline office in Rome, on charges of active complicity in the attempted assassination.
Tell us what you've been arrested for.
Question: if Bulgaria is involved, could the Soviet Union also be involved? The question is diplomatic dynamite because Yuri Andropov, the new Soviet leader, was head of the KGB when the plot was hatched. In this case, the smoking gun, so to speak, may never be found. In the high-risk world of international terrorism, deniability is crucial and expected, and responsibility is always carefully laundered. It is now clear from chance photographs taken just seconds before the shooting that Aca did not act alone. At first, it was believed that Aca had one Turkish accomplice, possibly two, who were with him in St. Peter's Square. The man on Aca's right has been identified by Turkish police as Omer I, whose fake passport was produced on the same day and in the same place as Aca's. The other suspected accomplice, photographed after the shooting by an American tourist, has not yet been identified. Aca claimed he was also helped by two Bulgarians who were in or near St. Peter's Square. Italian authorities decided over the past weekend to hold one of the Bulgarians, Antonov, in prison pending his trial. In early August 1980, as the crisis in Poland escalated, the Pope sent an envoy to the Kremlin. He delivered an extraordinary handwritten letter in Russian from the Pope to Leonid Brezhnev, then head of the Soviet Union. It said that though the Pope was the head of a universal church, he was still a Pole and deeply affected by developments in Poland. And if the Russians moved against Poland, the Pope would leave the Vatican and return to Poland and stand shoulder to shoulder with his people. This letter could have struck Brezhnev as an intolerable intrusion by the church into the state affairs of Eastern Europe. Time and again, the Russians conducted military maneuvers suggesting an invasion was imminent. The costly, frightening, dangerous maneuvers mirror the Kremlin's dilemma about Poland. Western intelligence experts now believe that it was then, in the late summer of 1980, that the plot was hatched. Brezhnev, exasperated by the Pope, might have uttered the Russian equivalent of, "Will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?" The Turkey into which Mehmet Ali Aca was born in 1958 was, as always, a careful balancing act between East and West. It is a Muslim country of 45 million people. Because of its geography, sitting as it does on the ancient trade routes between Asia and Europe, it has often been a target of Russian strategic moves, resulting in 13 major wars between the two countries in the past 300 years. In recent years, with weapons and propaganda, the Soviet Union has sought to destabilize Turkey, a huge effort that cost more than $1 billion, supporting both right and left-wing terrorism. The killing by first the left and then the right was widespread.
On the far right, there was this man, Colonel Alparslan Turkish. His neo-Nazi National Action Party had its own private army of young terrorists. They were called the Grey Wolves.
Ali Yurtaslan, a defector, directly links Aja to the Grey Wolves in West Germany.
I know this fact beyond any doubt. The Grey Wolves arranged Mehmet Ali Aja's escape from prison in Turkey and his subsequent safe passage to Europe and Germany. The people who arranged Aja's escape obtained a false passport for him and provided him with money. After his arrival in Europe, Aja was employed by the Grey Wolves as a tough who was used to intimidate their opponents.
Often, Aja slipped across the Swiss border into Zurich, where there was also a large Turkish community. Twice, he stayed at the Hotel Rutli, from September 9th to 12th, 1980, again on March 3rd, 1981, a particularly important day. It's now been learned that it was then that Aja met with Musa Çedat Çelebi, a Grey Wolf leader in Frankfurt. At the meeting, Çelebi offered Aja 3 million West German Deutschmarks to kill the Pope, also offered him sanctuary in Bulgaria, a highly improbable offer unless it had the approval of Bulgarian authorities. According to Vatican sources, it was here in Switzerland, as well as in West Germany, that Aja also received spending money, lots of it. By the time he reached St. Peter's Square, he had spent an estimated $50,000. By the time Aja returned to Italy in early April 1981, he began to operate like a terrorist on a tight deadline. On April 8th, he arrived in Perugia, a university town in central Italy. Milan, under the dome of the Galleria, the elegant beefy cafe, where Aja had been spotted a few months before. Now, on April 23rd, he returned to Milan to the Condor Travel Agency to buy a 2-week honeymooners tour of Mallorca. Aja went alone, a guest at the luxurious Hotel Flamboyant. According to information from Swiss and West German wiretaps, it was from here that Aja telephoned Çelebi in Frankfurt, said, "I have received the sum we agreed. I'll go to Rome to carry it out." Aja then telephoned Bakci in Olten, told him to bring the gun to the Milan railroad station and have it there by May 9th. Both Çelebi and Bakci worked for a prominent Turkish smuggler, Bekir Çelenk, who took his orders from Uğurlu, head of the Turkish mafia, who in turn collaborated with the Bulgarians in a number of dark activities. This complex layering of responsibility, this deliberate distancing of one level of authority from another, is said to be typical of the highly professional operation of the Soviet KGB. On May 10th, Aja left for Rome, where he checked a small satchel containing his gun in the railroad luggage department. At a prearranged time, Aja went to the railroad station, where he claims he was picked up by 2 Bulgarians, Sergei Ivanov Antonov, who has been arrested, and Todor Stoyanov Ivasov, an official with diplomatic protection who has returned to Bulgaria. The 3 conspirators, by this account, then stopped at an apartment house where many Bulgarians live. There were last-minute checks of plans and weapons. Around 4 p.m., Aja said the Bulgarians drove him to St. Peter's Square. The Pope's Wednesday audience was just beginning. At 5:17 p.m., Aja shot the Pope. Even though the Pope these days seems like a tired man, he remains heavily engaged in church and world affairs, still an extraordinarily controversial figure. The investigation into the attempt on John Paul's life has mushroomed into a major international problem. For a while, the Vatican quietly helped the investigators, pointing to leads in Eastern Europe. Now, with these leads being actively pursued, the Vatican feels it can safely retreat into ecclesiastical silence. Its work is being done by others. None plays a more central role than the Roman magistrate Ilario Martella. Cautious and courageous, with a reputation for honesty, Martella has been accumulating evidence for more than a year. He has said little, traveled much. to the United States, Turkey, West Germany, Switzerland, untangling a web of conspiracy that has its roots in Bulgaria. Omer Bakci, a Turk who helped Aja with the gun. He was arrested in Switzerland last summer, held at the Regensdorf prison near Zurich, until, at Martella's request, he was extradited to Rome on October 16, 1982. Musa Çedat Çelebi, another Turk implicated with Aja in the papal plot. He was arrested by West German police on November 3rd, extradited to Rome on January 14th. He's now confessed to having dealt with Aja. Horst Grillmeyer, an Austrian arms smuggler involved in getting the gun to Aja. He was arrested on January 11th, charged with smuggling new Soviet weapons across the Czechoslovak border into Austria. He is being held in the Korneuburg prison outside of Vienna. This stunning string of arrests and extraditions angered and alarmed Bulgaria and the Soviet Union. Both denied any involvement in the papal plot. On December 17th, what rarely happens in Bulgaria happened. Foreign correspondents were invited to a news conference. Present for questioning were Bekir Çelenk, the Turkish smuggler accused of having bankrolled the plot. Italy had issued a warrant for his arrest on October 26th. The Bulgarians put him under police custody on December 9th. Çelenk posed as a hurt, angelic innocent. Zelyo Kolev-Vasilev, former aide to the Bulgarian military attaché in Rome, fingered by Aja along with Antonov as an active accomplice in the plot. He too professed outrage and innocence. And Todo Stoyanov Ivasov, described as a financial officer at the Bulgarian embassy. He had diplomatic immunity and could not be arrested. These Bulgarians were known to Aja only by code names. He identified them from a batch of 56 photographs provided by Martella. Bulgaria bombarded the correspondence with pamphlets, denials, and explanations, charging in the process that if anyone was responsible for plotting to shoot the Pope, it was the CIA. The Soviet Union, under its new leader Yuri Andropov, for 15 years chief of the KGB, added its own wrinkle to Bulgaria's attack, directly accusing the Pope of subversive activities in Poland by creating the Solidarity Trade Union. On December 20th, Italy counterattacked. Cabinet ministers addressed a special session of parliament. The defense minister called the attempted assassination an act of war, explaining that in his view, it was an alternative solution to invading Poland. The interior minister charged that Bulgarian diplomats, agents, and tourists were involved in the assassination plot. But if Bulgaria was involved, as asserted, what about the Soviet Union? Roberto Paleski, number 2 man in the Italian Foreign Ministry, added up the evidence and concluded that the KGB masterminded the plot.
I am saying that if the Bulgarian services are involved, they are doing it on behalf of the secret services of the Soviet Union.
4 months ago, we concluded our original report by saying the evidence suggests that either the Russians hatched the plot against the Pope as one desperate way of containing the crisis in Poland, or at a minimum, they knew about it and did nothing to stop it. The evidence now is even more persuasive. And yet, in this matter, the Reagan administration is etching no profile in courage, allowing Italy to stand alone against the fury of the Soviet Union. Indeed, some key aides of the CIA, both here and in Washington, are actively discouraging American newsmen and Italian investigators from pursuing their obvious leads. Why? Surely not because they believe the Russians are innocent. Part of the explanation lies in the ironic fact that many in the United States and Western Europe would rather not be provided with proof of Soviet complicity at this time. In their minds, that could shatter hopes for détente, trade, and arms agreements. It really shouldn't, because this has never been an either-or proposition. Still, the attempt on the Pope's life was a special evil form of state-sponsored terrorism with grim implications. The continuing investigation here has the potential of a time bomb ticking away in a corner of East-West relations. I am Marvin Kalb, NBC News.
place to get it. And so at this flea market, I spied this chair. It had a different cover on it. We bought it for $35. We took it home. It was always my favorite chair. And so when we built the Will of God focus at Santa Barbara in the little shed in the back, I got my favorite chair and had it covered in blue velvet for Moria and let it be his chair there. And so it's been in Santa Barbara for all these years since we moved west. And so they asked me, what chair should they bring to the inner retreat? And I started meditating on chairs. And Moria said, bring my chair. So that's the story of the long trek of the chair.
For thy songcraft of ages will bless every soul with a feeling of greatness that makes each one whole. Thy love like a torrent flows over the soul. Its crystal waters will make all men whole.